Okay, so here's a great pH scale that shows some strong acids, some strong bases, and examples everywhere in between. Now, the lab we're going to do with this unit, we will take 12 common household substances and we'll measure the pH using various indicators. Okay. So here's the menu of formulas. These three are the basis of all of the calculations. So if you get to where you can understand and appreciate these three, that's all you need to do. This is merely the equivalent of this, but for pOH instead of pH. And this is merely the equivalent of this for the OH concentration. And then this is merely this solving for the hydrogen ion concentration. And this one is merely this solving for the OH concentration. Okay, so here's the sample problem. You have a solution with a hydronium concentration of 3.3 times 10 to the negative fourth. What would the pH be? Well, if you remember that pH is the negative log of the hydronium concentration, then you could merely say that you know that the pH is going to be somewhere around 4, somewhat less than 4. So you just take 3.3 times 10 to the negative fourth, and you take the log of it, then you make it positive. So get out your calculators, solve for this equation, and you should get 3.5. Now, if you know one of these things, you should be able to find all of them. So here's a solution with a pH of 4.75. Find the other three quantities. Okay, so we know that pH is the negative log of the hydrogen ion concentration, or hydronium concentration. So the hydronium concentration is merely 10 to the negative pH. And if the pH is 4.75, then we just take 10 to the negative 4.75. Okay. So you basically hit the second or the inverse function of the log, inverse log. And you should get 1.75. Excuse me, 1.78 times 10 to the negative fifth. Now, if you want to find the OH concentration, remember that these two multiplied together equals 10 to the negative 14th. So if we plug in this value here, then the OH would be this divided by this. So OH equals 10 to the negative 14th divided by 1.78 times 10 to the negative fifth, which comes out to 5.62 times 10 to the negative 10th. Now, you can double check your answer by taking this value and multiplying it by this value. This times this always gives 10 to the negative 14th. Now, to find the pOH, which is basically the pH, but for the OH concentration instead. Remember that pH plus pOH equals 14, so pOH equals 14 minus whatever the pH is. So there you have it. So if you know one of them, you can find all of them. Now, measuring pH, there's two ways. One is with indicators, and indicators are basically chemicals that change color with pH. Okay, and they're usually based on pigments, plant pigments. Litmus was derived from lichen. And then there's various other plant pigments that we use to make all of these different indicators. Okay, pH paper is made of, it's laced with a bunch of indicators that change color over the whole spectrum of the pH scale. Okay, so acids are red, strong acids, weak acids are orange, neutral is yellowish green, and then bases go from green to blue on the scale. Universal indicator is an indicator that runs, it's usually a liquid, and it runs from weak acids to weak bases. And then phenolphthalein is a chemical that is clear in acids and and pink in bases. Okay, now we're going to use some plant pigments. Like I'll take some cabbage juice and I'll boil it, and then we'll take the pigment from that cabbage juice and we'll make an indicator of it. And you can see that it changes colors over the whole spectrum, kind of like a universal indicator. Hydrangea flowers will actually change color based on the acidity or basicity of the soil that they're grown in. So that's pretty cool. And then here's some common indicators, and you can see that each indicator changes under a fairly narrow band of pH differences. So if you want a broadband indicator, you have to mix various other indicators. Another way of measuring pH is with a pH meter, which actually detects hydrogen ions in solution, and then it gives a digital readout. All right, the next section